What's going on, Wolfpack? Welcome back to another episode of Market Watch Mondays. As always, I'm your host at Mike Me Up with 2Ps. This is my favorite show. Hopefully, it's your favorite show too. I just got back from a nice little trip on the slopes in Tahoe, so ready to get into things. I'm recording this on Sunday. The games are still going on. Currently, Tampa Bay is getting whooped by the Rams, specifically their O-line's getting absolutely shredded by the D-line. But I'm not going to comment on the games. I think, like I said, as the offseason kind of comes around, it's my favorite time of the year because I get to focus on whatever content it is I want to do. And today, I wanted to take an early look at ADP trends and players' values going into the offseason, specifically going into the draft, to see if anything really just jumps out at me. And then also, I want to talk a little bit about what I think my draft strategy will be heading into this offseason compared to prior years based on some of that ADP trends. All right. But before we get to that, man, y'all know what time it is. Hit that intro. All right, yeah. So anyways, as I was saying, I had a pretty damn good weekend. We went to Tahoe, hit the slopes, shredded some powder, as always. It's good living in California in the warm weather while still being able to go up north and hit the slopes when we can. But anyways, just got back. Now I'm back in the studio today with y'all trying to grind some ADP stuff. Before I get into the specific ADP, though, I just want to talk a little bit about like the general trend and the general, I guess, feeling that I'm getting from being in the Twitterverse, from looking at chats, from looking at ADP, from looking at following people in the space, and then also in my own leagues, right? And just piling that on top of the general offseason trend of everyone shifting their focus towards youth and incoming rookies and basically casting away a lot of veterans to the wayside. And I think we're going to see that even more this year just because of what happened in the season, right? There were so many injuries, especially from the veteran space, from some of the top veteran players. And I think people are beginning to kind of lose confidence, right? Especially in like the running back zone where, you have some guys who are entering that third, fourth, fifth year, whatever, and people are going to start losing faith in them. And that's kind of a weak spot, I think, a blind spot for everyone, but one I want to focus on as well. So I think going into the offseason, I think this year is going to be very, very easy to go all in, right? To go all in on championship year one. One, because, like I said, veterans are normally always undervalued, but are going to be particularly undervalued just because people are tainted from what happened this year from a COVID perspective. Two, the 2023 class is one of the most hyped classes of all time, and it might be one of the few classes where you can kind of almost realize full value of future rookie picks a year in advance. I mean, I feel like we've already been realizing full value like 2 years in advance. Like right now, it'd be hard for you unless you're playing in a more casual league with home dynasty players, but it's hard for you to even do like a 1-for-1 trade of a 2022 first for a 2023 first, when normally, if you're paying for a pick in the current year, you got to add more on top. I've seen deals where people pay, 2022 first plus for a random 2023 first. So when you think about those two factors together, when you integrate them, then the field is ripe for startup value, right? You're going to be able to draft startup players late. You're going to be able to trade back, still implement a trade back strategy, but still draft veterans, and then I'll show you some of the most valuable veterans you can draft. But then you can also utilize rookie picks if you need to early. And normally I'm against this. Normally I'm fully against using rookie picks early. And maybe after I do my offseason research, I'll still come back around to it. But my early indication, my sense is that I might be more willing to part ways with my future rookie picks in this startup draft season in order to get W's now. And you can always try and get those draft picks later, or I can try and acquire some. What I'll do is probably give up 2023 first and try and acquire 2024 first for cheaper, so I can like kind of hedge myself that way. But for the most part, I think you can. This is like one of the few classes where you can kind of almost realize like 80 to 90% of the value of a draft pick before it happens. And normally that's not the case. Normally, like, you can maybe realize like 60%, maybe half of that rookie value pick if you're trading a year in advance. But because of how hyped the 2023 class is with the running backs, with some of the quarterbacks, with some of the wide receivers, if you can take 80 to 90% value, right? Even 80% value a year in advance and hedge that risk and put it in production and build a strengthening team. I think that's where the risk and reward of trading rookie picks kind of comes into play. Like, obviously you always heard me say, like, never trade rookie picks early, right? Never do it. And you'll hear a lot of people say, never trade rookie picks early. And you'll hear some people say, I'm always willing to trade my rookie picks early. But I think for me, I'm always trying to assess the macro trends and then trying to identify where there are weaknesses and where I can take advantage. I think that is one where the combination of really, really undervalued veteran players and really, really hyped up and potentially at one point overvalued 2023 first, those two factors mixed together creates for a very, very interesting offseason dynasty draft strategy. And, as I work through the Dynasty Bible and the draft guide for this offseason for BDGE and Big Dogs, these are the things I'm going to be thinking about. And I'll probably test some of them as well as I kind of just throw my money in and do some startups and see what's up. But for the most part, I think my early indications is I'm going to be more willing to go all in on the class. And, because trading back and trying to acquire a lot of those 2023 first, you might put yourself in a disadvantage to try and gather that class, right? I've already gathered and controlled 2023 first in a lot of my leagues that I plan to dominate that year in because I did it 2 years in advance. But now doing it almost feels a little bit late, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying don't do it. Like, I'm sure there's still opportunities out there if you're in your more casual home leagues, where you're playing with friends that don't really talk about Devi, don't really watch college, and don't really look that far ahead, then I'm sure there's still benefits to be had. But I think if you're playing in a little bit more savvy leagues, a little bit more leagues full of degens, like if you're in the Wolfpack Dynasty League, for example, trying to acquire 2023 first, trying to acquire 2023 Devi picks, good luck. Good luck, because it's going to be tough out on the streets. Like, that class is probably going to get as much hype, if not more, than the 2020 class, which we all already know is one of the best classes ever. But yeah, it's just a very, very interesting dynamic that I think through now. Where I'm like, wow, next year, this offseason might be one of the first years where I'm giving up my future first round picks to move up in a draft and acquire some talent and acquire some veterans, or just trade those picks straight up for veterans. Because if you look at where KTC, by the way, KTC is Keep Trade Cut. That's keeptradecut.com. And basically what they do, I've mentioned them before on the show, but they aggregate a bunch of data points. So when you go to their site, they always send you a vote that says keep trade cut between three players. And then that basically ranks in terms of how you rank those players. And they gather all these thousands and thousands of data points from everyone that uses the site and all the traffic that goes to their site. And they use that to build an ADP ranking set. And I'm a big fan of it. Some people hate on it because I do agree it's a little bit more reactionary. So that's one of the weaknesses, where you see stuff and I'm like, damn, there's no way that's happening in any experienced league. But at the same time, not everyone is playing in experienced leagues, right? This is where, my entire mantra of trying to understand your league mates comes into play. If you play in a league with a bunch of degens, right, you might have to tailor these rankings a bit. But if you're more of a commoner, just more of a person that just plays, for fun, for casually, more of a casual player, I think this kind of does give some insight into the general sway of the overall casual dynasty community. But also I prefer way more than the mock draft ADP that's compiled out there, because mock draft ADP, a lot of it's analysts, a lot of it is the same people that are constantly doing mock drafts, and then they're influencing ADP. It's only 4 or 5 data points, so it's not that accurate. Whereas this, you have thousands and thousands of players, and granted, it's not perfect, but it is the best that we have. So when I look at KTC, right, how they value, or how they reflect the community is valuing 2023 first round picks. 2023 first round picks are already making it into the top 2-3 rounds of your dynasty drafts, I think. Let me just pull it up here real quick so I can double confirm so I don't eat it in my mouth. Yeah, so a 2023 potentially early first is currently being put in the top 3 rounds. So you could get a very, very talented veteran, and that's only assuming it's early, which obviously I never do. I also never assume it's late. I assume it's middle. But honestly, in some of my leagues, I see people paying a lot more than that. So if anything, as we get closer and closer to your drafts, and as you're doing startups in the fall, right, as college football season starts, I really feel like you're going to be able to start realizing some of that 2023 first round pick value at 80%. And then granted, look, you can hold it for another year and get that full realized 20%. But for me, if I'm weighing that 20% versus getting some veteran production for me in season, that's a very, very that's a good conversation to have. It's a conversation I never had to have before, right? Before, I was always like, I'm definitely going to hold rookie picks. I'm never selling early. I'm never doing that because they are guaranteed to accrue value. But when you think about it in the context of like a class that's already so hyped, already so well known, the gap to realizing full value is a lot smaller than prior years. So in those situations, I'm more willing to explore what's out there. All right, so that's just my general philosophy, general overall approach that I want to cover real quick. Now I want to dive in a little bit to the actual ADP. So first up, I'm going to throw up on the screen is round 1 ADP from Keep Trade Cut. Shout out to those guys. Number 1, Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Justin Herbert. Number 3, Jamar Chase. Number 4, Jonathan Taylor. Number 5, Justin Jefferson. Number 6, Joe Burrow. Number 7, Kyler Murray. Number 8, Lamar Jackson. Number 9, Kyle Pitts. Number 10, DeAndre Swift. Number 11, Najee Harris. Number 12. So that basically rounds up the first round. And then you have A.J. Brown, Javonte Williams, Dak Prescott, and Deebo Samuel. That's basically the top of the second round. But things that jump out to me here, right? I always feel like wide receivers, especially the top dynasty wide receivers, are overvalued. This reminds me of the time maybe 4 years ago when I first started playing Dynasty. Everyone's telling like, you got to go wide receiver early. Wide receiver has longevity. You build your team around wide receivers, and you get running backs through the rookie draft. Sounded great in practice. I was like, damn, that makes a lot of sense. I want to build for the long run. But as I've played over the years, like, it just doesn't make sense to invest in an early pick in such a low leverage position when you have elite talent giving you great production like rounds later. Like Deebo Samuel you're getting him in like 6th, 7th round. Cooper Kupp, you're getting him in the 5th, 6th round. Like, you're going to be able to get veteran production for super cheap as well. It just, I have Jamar Chase and I have Justin Jefferson as my wide receiver 1, first of all, but I have Jamar Chase right behind him, and they're in the same tier. So they're in a tier by themselves, and obviously it looks like Keep Trade Cut also views them that way. So it makes sense. I don't care which one you have first. It's not really worth discussion or the time. They're both elite. They're both great. Be happy with either one. But having said that, there's no way in hell in a super flex league where I would be giving up a Kyler Murray, a Lamar Jackson even, for either one of those guys. Because look, I get it. Like, people are down on Kyler. He had a rough second half. Cliff Kingsbury, the most fraudulent fake sharp in the league right now. I've always said that from the jump. And, people were fooled by him a little bit, get a hot start this season. But as you saw in the playoffs, as you see in any close games, he is a fraud. He's not very good. He's not a good head coach. I don't know what they're going to do over there. But at the end of the day, Kyler Murray is still Kyler Murray. I know he had a couple down games, had a down half season, but we've seen the ceiling that Kyler presents. And from a fantasy perspective, there's just no chance that I'm going to give that up for a wide receiver. Same with Lamar Jackson, had an injury-riddled season. Obviously, people are down on him as well. But we saw his passing take another step. We saw them add weapons. We saw Hollywood take a step. Mark Andrews take another step. That is going to be a very, very good offense. And then that's not to mention all the running success that he has on the ground as well. So personally, I would not have either of those guys below the wide receiver. So when I look at this list, I think wide receiver is a little bit too high. But also, you need to think about it in terms of a startup market and a trade market. Those are very, very different things. In a trade market, even though it's ranked this way, man, like, go and try and send offers for Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson and these types of guys using Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. See if you get it done. Just try and get a plus on top. If you get it done, let me know. But honestly, I just don't see it in many experienced leagues. So I think personally there's way too many wide receivers there. And also, I would take Jonathan Taylor ahead of Jamar Chase. I would take Jonathan Taylor ahead of Justin Jefferson, which he is currently ranked there. But I personally have it like the top quarterback. So I too have Patrick Mahomes. I still have Mahomes number 1. I get it. Josh Allen's absolute god. I moved them into the same tier. But I have Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert in the top tier. And I still have Kyler there. I think Kyler is still definitely that type of talent. But I would definitely take all of those before I even consider looking at any wide receivers. And I would definitely take Jonathan Taylor as well. Just high impact players. And Jonathan Taylor, still going into his 3rd year. I get it. Injury risk is high, but there's just no way that I'm going to be valuing the wide receiver position that highly. So that's one thing that jumps out to me. And then obviously, Christian McCaffrey, like, omissions from the first round. I think Christian McCaffrey is still easily a first-round talent, but given the market is not valuing him as such, then I would also be willing. I've moved him down my rank simply because of that. Is because the market's not valuing him that much, and I'm considering the market values in my ranks because I don't want people reaching too far for players, with the exception of one guy, which I'll cover later. But overall, like, the first round, like, I hate where all the players are. I just think the positional value is not really coming into play here yet. One call I want to have is Kyle Pitts finally made it in the first round. I think a couple weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, he was floating in that like late second, early third, and then started creeping up a bit. Kyle Pitts had an incredible rookie season. The only thing he did not get is touchdowns. So look, if you don't like Kyle Pitts, if you think he's not going to score any touchdowns for going forward in his career, cool, have that view. But if you actually understand how TDs work and the variance that's involved with it, I think Kyle Pitts is probably, you could make the easy case for Kyle Pitts as one of the top non-quarterback assets in Dynasty, non-quarterback, non-Jonathan Taylor assets in Dynasty. Not easily, but you can make that case ahead of any wide receiver just because of the positional advantage he gives. And I'm obviously talking about tight end premium leagues where you get a premium for tight end receptions or yards or whatever tight end premium format you play in. But it's a very, very plausible case to make for Kyle Pitts. He had an incredible year. His comps, when you look at his comps, shout out to Cooper DFF. But if you look at his comps in terms of like air yards, market share, target share, etc., like ADOT, et cetera, like he comps to a Julio Jones. Like his rookie season comps to a Julio Jones type rookie season. And we know Julio Jones was never an elite in the touchdowns, but if you could have started Julio Jones in your tight end for his entire career, man, that would have been in the conversation for 1.01 overall in Dynasty in every single year. So I'm all aboard Kyle Pitts. I'm not acquiring any more because I don't have any. I can't afford it. But I got all my Kyle Pitts in before the season started for the most part. A couple shares after the season started. But if you're still not in on Kyle Pitts after seeing his rookie year, man, I don't know what to tell you. Like it's TD variance. Like based on what he did, he should have had like 6 or 7 TDs, and he only had 1. And if he had 6 or 7 TDs, it wouldn't even be a conversation where he'd probably be going in the top 5 picks of a Dynasty startup. It's cool to see him in the first round now, which is kind of I think where he belongs, but not exactly where he belongs. But I think that's like where he had deservedly respected based on his rookie year. That's where he probably should be going. It is in the first round, early second. So yeah, cool to see that. Next up, let's take a look at quarterback. So Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Look, I don't really care about what within tiers. If you want to have Josh Allen first, go for it. He's obviously a beast. He provides that rushing upside, and he also provides high upside on the passing end. He's now proven it in back-to-back years, so I have no arguments there against Josh Allen there. And then obviously Justin Herbert, the God. I love Justin Herbert, so nothing really to talk about at the top here. I do think Joe Burrow is getting a little bit too high. I think Joe Burrow is really good, right? Really, really good real-life NFL quarterback. But at the end of the day, we're still trying to consider the upside of a Konami code quarterback. And Joe Burrow has that ability for sure. Him and Justin Herbert both have that ability, but Justin Herbert obviously is a lot more athletic and has a lot more ability than Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow did show it in his first year. I think he crossed my threshold. He had 21% of his fantasy points scored via the ground. But now, he's got Jamar Chase. He got T. Higgins, arguably one of the best, if not the best, young wide receiver duos in the league. Possibly, one of the best wide receiver duos in the league as well. I think, he has that passing talent, so obviously he's going to put up a lot of points there. But you can see like the boom bust window for a lot of these guys, and that is the problem with some of the passing only quarterbacks. They don't really provide you much of a floor. So I do think he's getting a little bit high here in terms of putting him ahead of a Kyler Murray, ahead of a Lamar Jackson. I'm not there yet. I still think Kyler and Lamar Jackson stand above Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is more in that like Dak Prescott tier. But I think people are going to keep getting more and more hype, right, as he locks down more and more of these clutch wins, right? And he's a great real life quarterback, right? But you still got to value that in the context of scoring fantasy points. And I have a problem trying to put Joe Burrow in the top 4, which is where he has, or even in the top 5. Like I have Kyler ahead of him. I have Lamar ahead of him. I think it's an interesting conversation between him and Dak and the likes of Trey Lance. He's definitely ahead of Trevor Lawrence, which is interesting because, I remember in Devy drafts like last season, like everyone was taking Trevor Lawrence first ahead of Joe Burrow. I was in that draft. I took Joe Burrow first because I needed production. I needed a quarterback. But I know everyone was taking Trevor Lawrence ahead of Joe Burrow. And, now it's looking like almost like a foolish decision because Joe Burrow's out there balling and Trevor Lawrence is not really doing much. But Having said that, it's only year 2 versus year 2. But yeah, that's just an interesting tidbit. I do think Joe Burrow deserves to be in that top 8 to top 10 range. I do not think he would deserve to be in the top 5. And that's just from a fantasy perspective, right? That's just from a fantasy perspective, because like you really need like those 45 to 50 touchdown seasons to make it viable. And even then, like you could not crack like top 5 points per game if you don't provide rushing upside. But he does have longevity, right? Like in terms of his job is secure. We know he's not a bust. We know he's like a very, very damn good quarterback. So he has that going for them, but you definitely got to balance it a bit. And then you see, so after Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott coming in at number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Trey Lance coming in at QB8 in Dynasty. Trey Lance and then Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. So the 3 top quarterbacks are kind of still in that type of zone, but Trey Lance is a little bit ahead. Look, Trey Lance is an interesting case because the reason why Trey Lance kind of held value the others didn't, because Trey Lance hasn't really played yet, right? And in the instances that he did play, he put up good fantasy performances. Now, was he really good in a real life quarterback position? No, not necessarily, but we all knew he was a developmental project coming in. But I think that's an interesting zone where, like, do you take a chance on some of those rookies or do you grab someone below? Like, I still have Deshaun Watson pretty high myself, and I have Russell Wilson pretty high because I do think Russell Wilson still got a lot of legs left, a lot of years left, even though Seattle looks like absolute shit. But I think this is, again, where I think you see the trend, right? A lot of the veteran guys are going to provide some value here. So you have Aaron Rodgers falling all the way down to the bottom of this group. You have Aaron Rodgers behind Mac Jones, right? And I love Mac Jones. I love the Patriots. I love everything I see about Mac Jones. But if I'm in a startup draft, I'm taking Aaron Rodgers over Mac Jones every time, even though Aaron Rodgers had a global meltdown of epic proportions against the San Francisco 49ers and got bounced from the playoffs. I still think he has an incredible upside. I mean, we saw it all season long. He has incredible upside as a quarterback. So if I'm drafting, right, and you're telling me I can land Aaron Rodgers in the like 5th or 6th round as my first quarterback, I'm very, very comfortable doing that because I would have probably traded back on multiple picks in that zone and kicked off with Aaron Rodgers, who probably has another 2-3 years left, right, at a minimum. So for me, again, you can see the trend of value, all right? Now I'm going to move on to the wide receivers. So wide receiver, you got Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown at wide receiver 3, Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 4, and then you have Cooper Kupp at wide receiver 5. Sorry, it's a really small text. I'm trying to do my best to read here. Cooper Kupp at wide receiver 5, and then you have Jalen Waddle, wide receiver 6, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 7, Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 8, Devontae Adams, 9, DK Metcalf, 10, T. Higgins, Stephon Diggs, and Deontay Johnson, finally getting some respect there. And then DJ Moore and Chris Godwin. So here's the other thing with wide receivers. You see it again, right? Young guys dominate at the top, and you're going to be able to get value later on in the draft. Like Tyreek Hill, you're getting him at pick 22 at the end of the 2nd round. I'm very, very okay with that. And honestly, he'll probably fall even more. You have DK Metcalf again in the 3rd round. He's not even old. DK Metcalf, people just sour on him because he had a bad, not that great second half, but also Russell Wilson, entire team did not have that great of a second half. But then you have guys like Chris Godwin, right, going in the 5th round, right? And I love T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins is fantastic. I've been pounding the drum for T. Higgins, especially after they drafted Jamar Chase when everyone said T. Higgins is dead. But why would I want to draft T. Higgins that early when I can get a Chris Godwin in the 4th, 5th round, when I can get a Deontay Johnson in the 4th, 5th round, right? This is just value city again at wide receiver. Is there any reason why like a Chris Godwin cannot have maybe not Cooper Kupp-esque season, but like, Chris Godwin cannot go back to the season before when he was actually wide receiver 1 overall, right? There's no reason that we don't see that again. So I think this is where it gets interesting. It's like you wait a couple rounds, you grab a Chris Godwin, you wait a couple rounds, you grab a DJ Moore even. You wait a couple rounds, you grab a Stephon Diggs. You can build a very, very strong veteran wide receiver room. So, I think that's just where the value is. Personally, I think, I love A.J. Brown, but I think A.J. Brown's probably a little bit too high here. I think A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, there shouldn't be that much of a gap. Like if I'm looking at this and you're telling me, do I have to draft AJ Brown at the bottom of the first or top of the second, or would I rather draft DK Metcalf in the bottom of the second, beginning of the third? Plus, I'm going to take DK Metcalf pretty much more often than not, because I have them in the exact same tier, so it doesn't really make too much sense to me why they're separated. Debo obviously has been pushed up into that really, really elite tier. Great player. Again, don't think I'm taking any of those wide receivers at the top, because it just comes down to roster construction. If I'm burning a pick that early, it's probably going to be on a high-end quarterback, a high-end Konami quarterback, or a top-end running back, or I'm trading back. Like, those are the main options I'm looking for, especially when I'm going to be able to get some of these later guys. And it says, like, Devontae Adams, 24, right? Tyreek Hill, 22. Like, if this is where they are now, I'm fully expecting them to get pushed in, like, the third round, right, come actual draft time when you start doing your Dynasty startup. So just a ton of value, ton of veteran value available there for everybody. Now, I want to jump to running back. So this is the most interesting to me. This is why I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for those of us that want to play and build win now teams when you do a startup draft next year. Because normally, like, you know, if you look at last year or maybe even the year before, like, a lot of running backs were going super, super early. So it's hard for you to land them in the startup drafts. But now, if you're telling me I can land a Christian McCaffrey at the bottom of the second round, sign me up. Okay, I get it. He's disappointed in 2 years because of injury, but they're not really related injuries either. So it just, I mean, every running back has injuries. So like Jonathan Taylor could go out next year, knock on wood, but he could go out next year and blow out his knee. He'd be done for the season. And he's been nothing but model health citizen. And if you think back to Christian McCaffrey, that's exactly how he was. He was the biggest workhorse in the nation at the college level, came in the NFL, was started off as more of like a third down back, receiving back, and then became the top workhorse back, very LaDainian Tomlinson-esque as he kind of matured, and, you know, an injury happened. And that's just life. Like, when I draft running backs, I live with the fact that it's possible, and it doesn't matter if you're a Javonte Williams, Jonathan Taylor, or Christian McCaffrey. It can happen on any single play. But having Christian McCaffrey as the running back 5 is just downright irresponsible, because when Christian McCaffrey plays, frankly, no one else comes close. There is no close second to Christian McCaffrey when he plays. I can't think of anyone else in the NFL who can score 0 touchdowns and give you a 30-point performance. But that's what Christian McCaffrey can do. That's exactly what he can do. And that's not a fluke either. He can do that, like, game after game, give you 20-plus points and not score touchdowns. Like, that is just an insane thing to think about. So here I am once again this year, pounding the table, saying Christian McCaffrey's got to be the guy that you want to pick. And if you trade out of the first round, you're telling me I can land Christian McCaffrey with my first pick in the second round, or my first pick in the third round potentially, sign me up. There's no way in hell I'm taking a Najee Harris or a DeAndre Swift or a Javonte Williams over a Christian McCaffrey. It just simply is not happening. And I love all those players. I think Javonte Williams is great. I think Javonte Williams is a stud. He's got great peripherals. But at the end of the day, like, he's not going to be Christian McCaffrey. Even in a bell cow format, he's just not going to do what Christian McCaffrey does for you. And it's hard to get on board and just assume that he's going to be a bell cow given all the uncertainties around it. And he's being valued as if he's already a bell cow, which honestly just makes no sense to me. DeAndre Swift, I've been pounding the table with DeAndre Swift a long time. Last offseason, when everyone said he sucked, Detroit Lions sucked, whatever, I'm still ranking him in my second round, at the top of the second, in my first round, because that's how much I think he could do as a fantasy player, and he went on and proved it when he was healthy. But taking him ahead of Christian McCaffrey just makes no damn sense. DeAndre Swift has more of an injury history than Christian McCaffrey does. I get it, he's a couple years younger, but running back production doesn't just fall off a cliff like Dynasty gamers want you to believe, right? A lot of guys, especially the elite guys, produce after age 25. Some of the best seasons come after age 25 for guys like Marshall Faulk, right? And that's who I think Christian McCaffrey is. So Christian McCaffrey doesn't make any sense to me. That's the one that jumps out to me the most, and that's the one that makes me think I can definitely build contending teams. Cam Akers. Y'all know how much of a stan I was for Cam Akers coming out of college, right? But there's no way in hell that I'm going to be taking Cam Akers as the running back 7 off the board, right? Ahead of you know, who are all these guys here? Ahead of Alvin Kamara, right? Ahead of Saquon Barkley, ahead of Dalvin Cook, ahead of, you know, all these guys. It's getting insane. Saquon Barkley is probably the one that jumps up the most to me. Saquon Barkley going in the 4th, 5th round, 4th, 5th turn. is insane because the coach and GM are gone, right? This is what we've been waiting for. The moment we've been waiting for. The coach and the GM are gone. I'm not expecting the team to turn around in like one season, but Saquon Barkley could either go to a better team, or if he stays on the team there, you would expect it can't get worse than a Joe Judge, right? It can't get much worse than a Joe Judge. It can't get much worse than a Gettleman. So I'm very, very bullish on Saquon Barkley. He's still a very, very elite talent, elite athleticism, and has the ability to become a workhorse. Honestly, he started off really slow this year, and he was picking things back up, and then he had another random freak injury where a dude freaking stepped on his ankle. Like, it's not like he's constantly blowing out the same knee or anything like that. It's just sometimes you have shit luck. Sometimes football says, hey, fuck you. I want to take a dump on you, and that's what happens, right? But I'm all in again on Saquon Barkley. So, again, you're going to be able to land, like, imagine this. You're going to be able to open a draft. If you don't do any trading, right? Open a draft. You start at the top of the first. You land one of the Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, whatever. In the second round, you pick up a Christian McCaffrey, right? In the third round, you can probably grab yourself like a Devontae Adams, maybe a Cooper Kupp, maybe a Tyreek Hill. In the fourth round, you grab a Saquon Barkley. In the fifth, sixth round, you grab an Aaron Rodgers. Boom. Like, that is a very, very realistic draft to have. And you're going to be going into the season cruising. And then in the fourth, fifth, sixth, you can get a Derrick Henry as well. Like, I've never been the biggest Derrick Henry fan, but if you're telling me I can maybe snag him in the fourth or fifth round of a Dynasty league, I'm all aboard. Nick Chubb, for whatever reason, is falling a lot as well. It's just like Saquon Barkley, and then it's like David Montgomery again. David Montgomery, I think, has been incredible value. There's just so much value at running back, and as players get drafted, as the Breece Halls, the Isaiah Spillers, and all those guys get drafted, I imagine like these guys are going to get pushed down even more. And the wide receivers, the Treylon Burks, right, the elite talents, you're going to start seeing guys taking rookie wide receivers in the third, fourth rounds of startup drafts after seeing what we got in 2019, 2020, 2021. We've been spoiled, absolutely spoiled with wide receiver talent. And this class is another great year. But am I expecting a repeat of 2021 or a repeat of 2020? No, because this is not the norm. I think people have forgotten about the dark days where you had really great prospects and they just didn't work out on the wide receiver front. And this value is just going to continue to get pushed down. You're going to be able to land. Saquon Barkley is going to be my top target again next season. And look, if he busts again, then maybe I'm a sucker. But look, someone that was that good as a rookie, that good in college, doesn't just become bad. I really do think part of the situation played into it. The injury, the freak injury again, played into it this year. He just never really got full up to speed. But coming in with a new coach, new system, new draft, hopefully finally focus on the O-line, probably get him a quarterback. But even if he doesn't get a quarterback, doesn't matter. I do believe that Saquon Barkley is still one of the few bell cows. And a few bell cow with receiving upside they can get in the fourth, fifth round. Sign me up. Sign me up, all right? So this is really why the running back rankings, when I look at it, and it really kind of echoes what we see on Twitter and what people think there. Like, if you talk about drafting Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey on Twitter these days, you get bombarded with injury-prone hits. So I really do think it's time to capitalize on that, and I'm going to be personally capitalizing on that this offseason to try and find league-winning drafts and try and win right out the gate from the first year, right? I'm going to go all in and see what happens. I think this is a great year to kind of do that, and then if it doesn't work like 2023, 2024, you can always pivot into to rebuild later. I'll take a quick flip through the tight ends. Again, Kyle Pitts, obviously jumping to the top of the list, is not, it's not really out of the ordinary. It's exactly what I would have expected. That's exactly where he belongs in terms of seeing that type of production that young. He's still going to be 21 years old, man. 21 years old going into the season. Mark Andrews is now the tight end 2 in Dynasty ahead of George Kittle. His production kind of warranted it this year, but we'll see. I think I still really like George Kittle going forward. I still really like Darren Waller. Darren Waller's fallen to the 6th round, now going in the 6th to 7th round of Dynasty startups. In the 6th or 7th round next year, if I am building a contending team, which I most likely will be, especially in tight end premium leagues or even normal leagues, if Darren Waller's there in the 6th, 7th round, I'm pulling the trigger 9 times out of 10. Like, Darren Waller is going only one round apart from the next tier of Pat Freiermuth, Dallas Goedert, etc. I'm definitely pulling the trigger on a Darren Waller if he's there. And then again, Travis Kelce going in the 5th, 6th round. Like, these are guys where, look, you might need to build a little bit of an older team, but if they can definitely put you into a championship position. So those are the most interesting plays to me for now. And going into next year, like I said, man, it's going to be a value position at the veteran, not position, but at the veteran grouping of fantasy players. There's going to be a lot of opportunities there to win and win now and win quickly. So that's what I'll be focused on next year. Who knows? As I go through my offseason, I'm honestly going to continue to update and what I think about these things. But my early indications based on me looking at ADP trends so far and Twitter trends and just trading trends and just getting the general pulse based on what I see in my leagues, those are the main points of focus for me. All right, that's all I got for you guys this week. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the little bell as well if you want to get notifications for when my new videos pop up. Again, hop on over, join the Patreon, patreon.com/OurPack. That's patreon.com/OurPack, one of the best Dynasty communities out there. And we're still going strong every single week. So, yeah, make sure you guys hop on in there. And then lastly, I just want to remind you guys that we will be putting the video back on the main channel at BDG. Whether that's popular for you, I don't know. For me personally, like Nick and I were friends long before we actually started working together. Like we decided to split the channel because it's like too crowded in the main channel. But I think, there's just way more eyeballs on the main channel. We want to try and onboard more people in the Dynasty community. So it just makes more sense. And I'm not doing this full time. Like I said, I'm not Nick. I'm not there making videos every single time. I'm not there making update videos. Like this is not my full-time job. This is just a side hobby hustle for me that I've enjoyed and gotten decent at over the time of the years and built a following and built some supporters and built really, really cool people that like to listen to what I say. But we need to have more Dynasty content, like more throughout the week. We brought on some other cool people that you'll probably see posting videos and creating content for us, and we'll continue to do that going forward. But yeah, I think just to give you guys a heads up, I think January 31st we'll be bringing the video back on the main channel. So make sure you guys follow the BDG channel if you don't already. If you're someone that just discovered me through Dynasty and then just following the Wolfpack and the Bunkbed Breakdowns channel, make sure you go and follow the BDG YouTube. It's all linked in the comments below, so you can follow through there. But the video will be going there. We will be going big. We'll be going mainstream, bringing you guys a lot more content, draft guides, profiles, draft profiles, a lot of stuff coming this offseason, and we're going to continue to build on the brand that we all staked our reputations on. That's Big Dogs, that's BDG. So thank you guys for all the support. But that's where we'll be heading going forward as well. So just want to give you guys the heads up for that. The Godfather made sure he texted me to make sure I let you guys know. So I'll keep reminding y'all to keep doing that. But yeah, as always, thanks for the support. Hope you guys enjoy the weekend of football. It's another good one, another good playoffs. I'm looking forward to the nighttime game personally. So hopefully you guys are out there enjoying as well. Until next time, peace.